have some of the top leaders from other organizations here today. We're very fortunate to have them. They have different and unique perspectives than we would get here. They're purposeful, visionary leaders and have different experiences, and we all can learn from them. As Frank previously mentioned, they have some great points to take away, and have joined us today to provide an experience to reflect on our current leadership roles. As you learned, you can be a leader even without the formal title. And I'm really excited today because I can introduce our keynote speakers. We are very lucky to have them. I'll start with Christine Tutzel, co-founder and Senior Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at Exonify here in Waterloo. Nando Cesarone, President of UPS International. Jennifer Smith, Senior Vice President of Technology and Operations, Cineplex Digital. Kamy Scarlett, CHRO and President of US Retail Stores for Best Buy. Ian Klugman, CEO of Communitech, and Sean Suggs, our TMMS President. So what an impressive lineup of speakers. We're going to start things off today with Kamy. If Kamy would like to come to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. Well, let's try that one more time. Good morning, everyone. Awesome. I'm thrilled to be here today. My name is Kamy, as you know. I'm happy that Sean asked me to come and speak. I think he was a little bit surprised at how quickly I responded when he sent me a text. And I'm like, really, man? I live in the state of Minnesota. I'll take any invitation that takes me anywhere outside of the state of Minnesota. Trust me. And I'm from Canada, so I've only been in the US since 2017. No Trump jokes, I've heard them all. In fact, I've probably even given a few. But that being said, one of the reasons why I wanted to come and speak is because I am a fierce believer in brands, right? Every consumer, the only reason you have a consumer is because of your brand. And as leaders, you also have a brand. Best Buy is an amazing brand. Toyota is an amazing brand. And I encourage you to think about what is your brand, right? For purposeful leadership, we need a brand. Show of hands if you have a purpose, if you've written a leadership purpose. Show of hands. I encourage you to do that. It took me 35 years to write mine, but it's done. That's the good news. And my brand is to bring the best of me to inspire the best in you. That is my leadership purpose. And at the end of every day when I drive home, I always ask myself, did I do that? Did I live up to that purpose or not? So I've been in retail for my entire career. I started at Zellers as a part-time cashier. You all remember Zellers. They're gone now, nothing to do with me. I worked at Tip Top Tailors. I worked at George Richards, Mr. Big and Tall. I worked at Loblaws. By the way, that was hell, I'm just saying. But I learned a lot from working there. I learned what happens when you work for an organization that is out of integrity with who you are as a leader, and how important it is to say that and to make change, which is exactly what I did. I left Loblaws. And so when I left Loblaws, I realized that I would never again work somewhere where I wasn't aligned with the company values. And so in many ways, I have Loblaws to thank for working at Best Buy, because for the first time, I can tell you, it took me 35 years to find the job I was born to do, and that's when I joined Best Buy Canada in May of 2014. Truth be told, I've been in retail for 40 years. And anybody that writes a resume would tell you, no, you never say that. You say more than 20 years of experience. If you say 40 years, they know you're old. Well, at some point in time in my career, I stopped caring about that. And so I do tell people it's been 40 years because I've learned a ton without question. But Best Buy Canada, best decision I ever made. I moved my family to British Columbia. And honest story, I got the call for the recruiter. And normally what I would always do is pay it forward. I would give somebody else's name if it wasn't right for me. I encourage you all to do the same. And so I went home that night and I said to my husband, I got a call for Best Buy Canada for the head of HR. And he said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I'm going to give them Steve's name. And he said, well, why wouldn't you put your name forward? And I said, you know the office is in British Columbia, right? And he said, yeah, I know. I said, are you planning on coming with me or are we having a different conversation? So with that, we moved, and it was awesome. And I absolutely loved it. You know, and you remember your first day? Show of hands if you remember your first day here at Toyota. Doesn't matter how old you are, you always remember your first day. And so it was a Sunday. I drove to the office to figure out how, in fact, I would get there. Where do I park? All that good stuff. And I saw that they had buses, and I thought, well, that's awesome. You know, they probably take people to and from the SkyTrain, right? So on Monday, when I started, and I started to meet people, I phoned my husband and I said, I know what the buses are for. He said, what are they for? I said, there isn't a person in this building that's old enough to drive. There was 1,200 people in the office. There were 5 boomers. I was one. And so my husband said, true story. This is Glenn Miner, by the way. He's the head of retail for Best Buy Canada. Yep, awesome. So my husband said to me, what's going to be your biggest adjustment working at Best Buy Canada? I said, I work for a president that uses the word dude. Like, that's going to be my adjustment. I got a call in 2017 from the CEO at the time. His name was Hubert Joly. And he said, come on down and talk to us. We have an opportunity here for you in the US. I said, no, I'm good. I really like British Columbia, oceans, mountains, all that good stuff. He said, no, really. Went home, talked to my husband, and I said, there's an opportunity in the US. And he said, if you're interested, your runway's not getting any longer. We could have done without that comment, just saying. I don't know why I stay with this man. So I took the leap of faith, and I moved to the US, to Minnesota. And so I came down as the head of HR, and I now run retail stores as well. So that's what they call a Best Buy promotion, just do 2 jobs. So with that, I'm loving it. And I'll tell you, from a culture perspective, there's not a culture I've ever worked at that is stronger than Best Buy. So I'm thrilled to share with you Best Buy's story. Let me see if I can do this. Oh, let's try the middle button. Perfect. There we go. Now I need to do a disclaimer. Middle button? Right button? I work at technology company. Oh, point it there. So I could tell you that this came from our legal team, that if I said that, I'd be lying. It didn't. This is my disclaimer to you, really to Toyota's leadership. Don't blame me if everybody in this room wants to do some of the stuff that we're doing at Best Buy. Because we are breaking legacy thinking, and it's been absolutely awesome. I've been having the time of my life here. And so, let me tell you about us. About 1,200 stores, Canada, Mexico, $43 billion in volume, 125,000 employees, fiercely committed to diversity and inclusion, fiercely committed to teens and keeping teens off the street and involved in tech. We have 60 teen tech centers across the United States. And here's what's awesome. When they graduate high school, we hire them. And that is fantastic. In addition to that, this is the real story about Best Buy. 2012. This is what keeps us humble. In 2012, our stock price was $12, and we hired Hubert Joly, who came from Carlson Wagonlit Travel. I wasn't there at the time, but the stories are famous. Everybody said, what's a travel guy going to teach us about retail? Well, thank God he showed up. And between the years of 2012 and 2017, that's really where the turnaround started. And what I would tell you about that time is the company was fat, happy, lethargic, not paying attention to what the consumer wanted. Instead, it was like we bought products and we sold them to you, and that was it. And so instantly, we put into place a cost focus. And I mean a cost focus. Color cartridges were ripped out of printers in every single building of Best Buy. That's how focused we were. The travel policy, slash and burn. You went from staying at the Hilton to the Super 6 motel. Seriously. Alcohol, taken off all travel reimbursement, as it should be. And so we got really smart about costs. And so from 2012 to 2017, we were simply being restored to a place of health. You know, the black numbers on the bottom line. I worked for a CEO once who actually said to me, Kamy, you know brackets aren't a hug, right? Get the brackets away from the numbers. And so from 2017 to now, we're able to transform. But the leadership skills we used to restore the company to health are not the same leadership skills you need to transform an organization. They're different. And so we had to take a good hard look at our current state and understand our future state. And that's also the way we treated employees. Through the turnaround, we treated employees, we led by the mass, not individually as we do today, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And so to get really clear, we needed a purpose. And our purpose is to enrich lives through technology. And that's more than just making your tech work. We actually bought GreatCall. We're in the healthcare business, right? So with an app on your phone, you as a caregiver can know if your mom's still in bed. or how many times she's opened the fridge door, or if she's eating at all. And so with that, we're now solving problems that customers didn't even know they had. And that's how you have to change. It's no longer about what you sell to people. It's about what people want, because choice is absolutely massive. And once you get clear on purpose, you have to get clear on goals, right? So with that, we came out and told all the investors these are our goals. And they are in this order intentionally, by design. We start with the employee. We want to be the best place to work in the United States. Now, lots of companies tell you we care about people, but it's one thing to say it internally. It's absolute magic when you say it externally. When we went out across the country with analysts on our analyst tour, they said, you're starting with the employee. Yeah, we know that. We wrote these. Yeah, we get it. They're saying most companies start with the financials. But at the end of the day, when you think of the way that this shows up, it starts with lead through the customer, and that leads to the bottom line results. So you talk about possible. This is our rallying cry. Let's talk about what's possible. And when you have a rallying cry like this, our employees, 125,000 strong, lined up behind let's talk about what's possible. That is an amazing thing to say in lieu of no. So what I did, people will, well, Glenn will tell you, they often refer to me as running with scissors most times at the office. I wrapped every single leader's door with this statement. Now go and try talk to your boss about something and have him say no when let's talk about what's possible is on the office door. So here's what's possible. You know, retailer, right? You got bricks and mortar. So we're four walls. Customers go shop there. And then, of course, online comes on, and you bolt that on, right? And then Geek Squad, we bought Geek Squad, and we bolted that on. And now we're selling in the home. So with that, the customer, they don't see channels. They see the brand of Best Buy. But internally, we saw channels. Stores, online, services, home. And in fact, we drove P&Ls against each of those channels. So what happens is we're fighting each other for the customer. You don't want the customer to go online when they're in your store because you're incented based on your individual channel. We have since switched to a market agnostic or a market portfolio where we're channel agnostic. And what I mean by channel agnostic, we don't care where you shop. We moved to a market short-term incentive program. So our managers will now tell the customer what is best for you. And no other retailer has moved to a channel agnostic strategy. And it's hard. You have to break legacy thinking. And so with that, it's our first step to say, we're here to serve the customer. We're not here to serve Best Buy. And again, to align all of our people, the number one thing we want you to do is simply lift the love of the brand of Best Buy, however the customer chooses to shop us. But we didn't get there on our own. Don't think we're super smart. Trust me, we had to hire some super smart people. So we hired McKinsey. Show of hands, McKinsey's consulting group. Yeah, they're expensive, let me tell you. But they came in and they wanted to understand what is our current state, really our current state. And so this model, you put your companies into any one of these models. There's 4 types of companies. Leadership factory, market shaper, continuous improvement engine, talent, knowledge core. And at the end of the day, we surveyed our people. We had a 98% participation rate on the survey. Yep, because we all have to track that. And so they said to us, we have never seen a company this size score as high as you did. We scored in the top decile of a leadership factory. And we were like, that's Best Buy, top decile. That's what operators do, right? It's about the numbers. Here's the sad point. We wanted to be a market shaper. And so our cultural focus points, risk management, personal ownership, challenging leadership, career opportunities, that's what retailers do. Deliver the number. Every 3 months, you get on a call and you tell your guide to the street and you report your earnings. But the market shaper is about customer-backed thinking. It's about innovation, role clarity. We sucked at that. And so that's where we're headed. And in order for us to get our culture behind being a market shaper as opposed to a leadership factory, we had to change the way we lead. We had to change our expectations of leadership behaviors. and we had to educate the organization about what needed to be different. And so we created leadership behaviors by design. We started with the input of what we wanted to be, which came from the Organizational Health Index, and we created leadership behaviors. We involved, obviously, ethics, which is huge, and diversity. And so we have educated every single leader and every employee across the organization about these 18 leadership behaviors. Historically, in the leadership behaviors they replaced, we had 46. You imagine that? 46 leadership behaviors. And if you stopped anybody in the hallway and said, "Can you name me one?" Yeah, no, I couldn't either. So, legacy thinking. You have to get out of the legacy thinking, especially today. The customer has so much choice. And if we think the way we always did, we're not going to get anywhere. Show of hands if for those of you in the room that have to do annual performance appraisals, if you have people that report to you, don't you hate it, right? I saw you. You said, "Oh my God, I love this woman." Show of hands if you absolutely love to get a performance appraisal every year. Nope. Said no one ever. Here's what happens. At Best Buy, they're done in April. I, as a leader, always think I have more time than I do, so I procrastinate. And then, of course, you got a week to the deadline, and you got 15 of them to do, and you pull up that form, and there's this big white space. And this is the one time a year that you're going to give your people feedback, and you think they care. Your job as a leader is simply fill in the form, but there's a lot of space. So you have your hands poised over the keys, you're waiting for brilliance to flow. It doesn't. And then you type, "Bob's commitment is only exceeded by his willingness to see the team successful." That means nothing, but it takes up space. And then you call Bob in. And the appraisal is tied to Bob's salary, right? The increase, the merit increase, and Bob's saying, "Just give me the number, give me the number, give me the number." 2.5%, 3%, it's never enough. So it's an event. And halfway through, Bob's saying, "Just give me the number," and you're saying, "No, feedback is your friend. This is the one time a year I'm going to give you feedback." And at the end of the time, you give Bob his 3%, and it's never enough, or 2%, pick a number. And now you're done. And then you have to take that form, and then you have to put it into a system that is horrible so it satisfies the process, and somehow merit spits out on the paycheck. This is an archaic process. And at Best Buy, I made it clear that the one thing I wanted attached to my legacy was blowing up the whole performance appraisal process. So we did. And we moved to quarterly conversations. Now here's what happens. Quarterly conversations, you as the employee, you fill it out. And right there on that form is a great big white space for you to write what I need to do better as a leader to better support you in your development. We have decoupled pay from performance appraisals. And that's the only reason companies typically don't do them, is going to say, "Well, how do I give out my 2% merit? How do I give out my 3% merit? How do I do that if I don't have a process?" Well, at the end of the day, what we do is we go to market, we assess the value for your job in the market, and then we compare your pay to your peers inside the organization. But here's what's cool. We actually show you the numbers so that you know at the end of the day how you're paid relative to market and how you're paid relative to your peers internally. Because the fundamental belief in the legacy thinking we blew up is that pay should be competitive. It should never, ever be conditional. And when I announced this at our holiday leadership meeting with 3,756 people, I got my first standing ovation, and I was only 2 minutes in. The next is the ever annual engagement score. Let's check and see if our people are happy. So we've asked the same questions, by the way, for the last 7 years. Same questions. In 125,000 people, we have an 86% overall engagement score. What do you do with that? And then, of course, we instantly go out and everybody has to do an action plan. And then you do the action plan, but we rate you on them, so you got to post them. And then when we go to your store, we check to make sure the action plan is there. But every single year, we're getting 86%, so how good are those action plans? Maybe the action plans are fine, so it's just the questions that are wrong. And so then, to make matters worse, we track your participation rate, right? We scorecard it. And so when it's time for the engagements, surveys coming around, we got 2 weeks to go, you grab the barbecue, I'll bake the cookies. And then you tell all your people in a store, take the survey, take the survey, take the survey, participation rate, take the survey. And so we're throwing this out as well, but that's not all. Once the results came out, we would then shame you by scorecarding you and coloring you red, green, or yellow, and then we'd show all your peers. How fantastic is that? Awful. We blew that up, and that was the second standing ovation I got, and I was 7 minutes in to the presentation at the holiday leadership meeting. So instead, we're asking real questions, and questions that have been built by a Best Buy network of general managers and employees to tell us what they want to tell us. I am hoping against hope that we come out of this with a 60% score, because I can do something with a 60%. I can't do something when it's 86, 87%. It's too high, it's wrong. Again, legacy thinking and blowing it up. There's a whole bunch of definitions in the dictionary about what culture is. We fundamentally believe at Best Buy, culture is really what people do when nobody's looking, right? This is a mirror, Toronto store. Glenn will attest to this. It was the first time I've ever seen a picture that defines culture. Most people would say, you can't touch it, it's feeling. Not true. You can see it in every aspect of what you do. And so he didn't know he was being watched. There was a district manager who was sitting in the car, downpour, as you can see. DM didn't want to get his hair wet. So he was waiting for a break in the storm, and he was walking a customer back to his car. And note, the customer didn't buy anything. So it's not like he didn't want to get his big screen TV wet, but this is culture, and the culture is so incredibly strong at Best Buy, you can feel it. You either fit or you don't. It's like merging with the 401 on a Friday at 5. So we believe, at Best Buy, if we lead for the mass, I believe, if any company leads for the mass, you will lose the soul of your organization. And we believe you have to lead one employee at a time. And that's how it's done, because every single employee has a story. Every single employee deserves an exception. Strong leaders can lead exceptions. And like I said, every employee, in my mind, deserves one. And so I want you to meet Josh. Phoenix, Arizona is his store. Phenomenal guy. And when I'm in the stores, the whole purpose of me going to stores is to meet people and talk with employees. And I had 3 employees on the sales floor pull me aside and say, that guy's an amazing manager. And I say, really, what makes you think that? Because he's helping me, and I've got PTSD, and he's there to support me. 4 of his employees are dealing with depression. And they told me that he's supporting them. And they were thanking me for the work that the company's done in the area of mental health. And I thought, wow, what an amazing culture. As I was leaving that store, I had an employee come up that I hadn't met yet, and he said, I need to speak with you. Can we go into the office? So I went into the office, and Josh came with me, and he said, I came back from the military. I'm dealing with anxiety and depression. I wanted to kill myself. And then I talked to Josh. And I want you to know he's an amazing manager, and I want to thank Best Buy for all of their support. And he was really emotional, and he said, I don't understand why I'm crying. I said, you're crying because you have the courage to share your story. And that's a great thing. So I turned to Josh and I said, do you feel as a leader that you can make any decision necessary to support him in a way that would make you proud to work for Best Buy? He said, yes, ma'am, I do. I said, you're breaking a whole bunch of rules, aren't you, Josh? He said, yes, ma'am, I am. I gave him a high five, slap, and a hug. I said, what rule are you breaking? He said, well, he has to take vacation when he's sick. I said, well, that's dumb. And he said, it's the policy. And so what he's doing is running hoops around, reporting him still working while he's off getting help with his anxiety, his depression, and his PTSD. I said, you keep doing that, and I'm going to go back to the office, and I'm going to change that policy. And I fundamentally believe, with all of the passion that I have, is that when a policy no longer serves the customer or the employee in a way that can make you proud to say you work here, your job is to break that policy, and my job is to change that policy. Policies, at the end of a long day, don't lead people. Leaders lead people. And so this is where I'm talking about making exceptions. Strong leaders can lead exceptions. Every employee deserves one. And I'll give you another example of this. So a woman, Andrea, came to our benefits team, and she's going through transition. And she said to our benefits team, the transgender benefits offered by Best Buy, they don't allow me to finish. They only take me so far through that transition, but they don't allow me to finish. And so the rewards team came to me the next day, and they had all of the data, and I mean all of the data. And when they compared our transgender benefits to the market, we were better than Target, better than UHC, better than Medtronic. We were better than anybody. And at the end of a long day, I said, I get we're better, but should we maybe lead the market? And if it meant that we were going to lead the market in change for transgender, what would that mean? I went to the CEO, and I said to Hubert, who owns the benefit program within Best Buy? He's French. Why, Kamy. He said, you do. I said, great, we're changing it. And we added chondroplasty, which is the removal of the Adam's apple, facial feminization, and pectoral implants. And that was all in the space of 3 days that we added that to our benefit program. And the question that I got was, why, at the end of a long day, would you do that when it's only one person that came forward? And it gave me such pride to be able to say, because she is enough. One employee is enough. Don't lead for the mass. It's one employee at a time. Our values as an organization, again, awesome. So it's learn from challenge and change, unleash the power of our people, show respect, humility, and integrity, and have fun while being the best. Best Buy used to hire people and teach them the values. Now they hire people that share the values, and that is the fundamental difference of when you fit with an organization. Like I said, 35 years to find the dream job, but I fit with this organization, you know, and so there's just something about that you just can't replace. And part of what it means to fit in an organization as an employee, as a leader, is where you're able to look yourself in the mirror every single morning and say, I am enough. And I encourage you all on your leadership journey to say, I am enough. Don't assimilate to fit in. I did that for 35 years. Honestly, working in a male-dominated organization, I had to change to fit in. And that's exhausting, because when you go home, that's not who you are. And this is the first organization I've ever worked at where I've been able to say, I am enough. And so I fundamentally believe that when the people become the brand becomes the people. And so true as it relates to Toyota, right? When the people become the brand becomes all about people. It's been an absolute pleasure today. Once again, my name is Kamy. I look forward to meeting some of you on break. Thanks so much.
Okay, I'd like to bring up our executive partner here, Steve.
Yep, thank you. Well, no tough questions from here, but I just want to say, before I sit down, what an inspirational presentation we just had from Kamy. Myself, I'm Lex's transformational leader, and I heard transformation all the way through this, so I'm inspired. Hopefully you were. So we're going to ask Kamy a few questions, and we'll see what more she can give us some insight to. So Kamy, what qualities do you most respect, admire, and look for in a leader?
Humility, first and foremost. So we've defined inclusive leadership at Best Buy as humility, grace, vulnerability, and courage. Most leaders think that they have to show up and nail it, and show up and have all the right answers. But at the end of a long day, those that are most vulnerable, when you share your vulnerabilities with others, only then will they share theirs with you.
And it's interesting you say that, because in Toyota we have 10 attitudes. It was from the founding fathers. They scripted that, and I think the number 7 is humility and gratitude. So it's part of our culture, and we try to live and breathe that every day. So Thank you for that. Maybe the second question, what is your strongest leadership quality? And what would you do to most improve? Or what would you like to most improve?
My strongest leadership quality. I'll skip that and just tell you what I think I'm good at, and then see Glenn on break, and he'll tell you whether that's true or not. I drive change. and I love it. And I'm able to make emotional connections between the employees and what it is we're trying to do. And so long term for me, Christmas at my house, when I've nailed it, when I've snatched the pebble from the hand and can leave this place, there'll be no titles at Best Buy, right? There'll be no organizational hierarchy, that we're just a bunch of 125,000 super smart people trying to get stuff done. I think what I'd like to improve is patience. I'm an activator, high activator for sure. And you can talk about work-life balance. I don't have any, but that's okay because that's balance to me. So, but I would say patience.
Good response. Yeah, and you talked about change, and we're actually going through that through our transformation activity. So that's really what resonated for me through your presentation, because I'm put in that position to try to change the youth here to take on that leadership role and be the future, especially as we bring on Lexus. So, awesome. Yeah. So maybe at this time, I'd just like to throw it out to the audience. Is there anybody out there that has a question for Kamy?
I'll take any question except how much I weigh.
Anybody? Oh, there's one back there. Yeah.
Thank you. You get a car.
Thank you. I'll hold you to that.
You get to build a car.
Maybe one question for you. You say one of the areas of improvement for you is patience, and that's something that maybe some of my mentors have mentioned to me. But what are the ways that you've kind of taken that and actually embraced that or tried to change that?
So thank you for the question. I would tell you what I'm working on, and I haven't nailed it, so I'm still working on it, is to stay fully present and to really pay attention to what's happening now. I mean, how many times have you talked to people and your eyes are glazed over and you know it, and you're either doing the grocery list on the way home or what it is. But staying purposefully present, I would tell you, is something that helps because it forces you to slow down. At the end of the day, what do they say? We have two lives. The second starts when you realize you have only one. And so from that point of view, just to realize the need to take that moment, to take a moment, give a moment, and be in the moment, is what's helping me from a patient's perspective. Oh, Frank's got a question.
Right? We'll get you one. Here we go.
Yeah, get the boss a mic.
Thank you, Kamy. Excellent presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Very motivational, and I think there's a lot of things there that scare me.
We're going to try to blow him up.
Let's do it, Frank. Let's blow up
We're
the
going to
PA
blow
process.
up the place.
Because Toyota is all about standards, right? Standards are the foundation of making sure that you have very consistent action so that our customers can get the best quality and we can assure things are built. So we always also think about consistency, right? Making sure we got fair policies. But mindless of that, the question I have for you is around, you mentioned at the beginning, 5 boomers, 1,200 millennials. Do you have any different strategies when it comes to the generations as we bring the younger generation into the workforce?
No, I don't know if I'd call it a strategy. We do have the Best Buy network, and we make sure that we have all representation on the Best Buy network. What I'll tell you is the millennials that are in the Best Buy network are very vocal about the way they want to work now. They don't want to work. They want to come to the office every day. They want to work from home. And so flexible working hours, things like that really matter. So I would say that we have more of a cohort that are educating us as to what's new, what's now, and what's next with that generation. Yeah.
We've just started rolling that out,
Yeah.
actually. We're in the
great.
trial phase right now. So, is there anybody else out there? Yeah, we got a... Oh, sorry,
Hi.
one here and then one, we'll get to you next. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I have the mic, so I get to go first. I just have a question about the performance management that you blew up, because I handle that at TCI, and I would gladly blow it up. But I'm just wondering what, you said in the room that you had applause, but more broadly in the organization, what was the reaction, and what did you do for change management?
Oh my gosh, they loved it. So we are now into our second quarter of doing quarterly conversations. Feedback from the employees, which we're getting on a regular basis, is they absolutely love it. Because it's not all just about the numbers, it's about my individual development. From a change management perspective, we put a massive amount of change management against this, in particular with the leadership. And the reason I say we did the leadership is because It's one thing for a leader to tell you how you're showing up. It's another thing for an employee to tell the leader how he or she is showing up. And so that's where the change management really was. But the feedback we've received has been phenomenal from the leaders as well. And their development plans are even richer because they wouldn't have had this feedback from their employees otherwise. And so they're very meaningful. Specifically, change management, we started with the workshops, we started with a communication and a marketing campaign, and then we did the temperature checks all the way through as you would with the normal Cotter change curve.
Very good. I think we had a question up front, middle row here. Yep.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for the presentation and for bringing the top of performance. Thank you for sometimes the I won't may not be the best thing for the group as a whole, right? But I'm impressed with your comment of one person is enough.
Yes.
And how do you balance that with the health of the collective?
So, great question. The question was, how do we balance the needs of one with the health of the collective? You know, really what it is giving each manager accountability and responsibility for being able to make change and make decisions, as opposed to, you know, in Minnesota, we have 4 buildings. Building C and level 6 is where the leadership sit. So it's about giving the leadership accountability for making those decisions that impact their people without permission from C6. And so the belief in Josh's case, in his store in Arizona, you know, he was giving people paid time off that were dealing with anxiety, depression, and PTSD. And the belief that you can't do for one, you know, you have to do for 125,000 what you do for one, is just not true. Because good people aren't going to raise their hand and say, I want the money you gave Josh. This guy is dealing with PTSD and mental health issues. So it's those types of things that we're saying, leading for the mass and consistency, as Frank said, is incredibly important. But also, when the policy no longer serves the direction we're heading, that's the time that we need to change the policy. And so those are the tweaks that we've made. You know, the other one is, from a customer, you can say you're customer obsessed, but we actually blocked the override key so you couldn't price match. How does that customer's obsessed? But the reason we blocked the key is we were trying to control the outcome, because we believe, you know, 972 managers will go rogue if they can over, and that's just not true. So when we took the price override off, by the way, the margin stayed the same, but the customer experience scores went sky high because we allowed our GMs to make those types of decisions. So it's policies like that.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, so also this is our young partner group, but we have WIT group. That's our women's BPG group. And one of the questions is, what's the best advice you have for the women in this group so they can rise to the leadership? What would you give that advice?
So thank you for that question. We also have employee resource groups at Best Buy, and I often speak at the Women's ERG. I think first and foremost what I'd say, and I think I mentioned it in my presentation, don't ever assimilate to fit in, right? Be a woman, be yourself, be who you are. Don't worry about what you're wearing when you come to work. I mean, the biggest thing that the women told me was, I don't want to look too girly. And I'm like, wow, the fact that somebody's actually thinking about that when they come into work is a concern. Because when you are able to be yourself is really where the best work gets done, and bring your whole self to work. That's the best gift you can give any company. But we have to give people permission to know that they're enough. And so that would be what I'd say to women. I never personally looked at the gender, but I started, as I said, in this business a long time ago. You know, and then the other aspect is sexual harassment is on the rise, right, with the Me Too movement. Companies need to have policies put in place that protect women and men, quite candidly. So I'm just in the process now of doing roundtables across the U.S. with, you know, employees from the sales floor, people from the corporate office, about sexual harassment and their experience, and what is it as a company we should be doing more of or less of to make sure that this goes away.
Yeah, very good. I'll ask, anybody else have a question? Oh.
I see a figure.
Thank you, Kamy, for a wonderful presentation. Sorry I haven't spoken for a while, so I just broke up there. Plus, your speech was so compelling.
I was gonna, have I moved you? You're
Made
awesome.
him choke up.
I wanted to ask, you spoke about recruitment strategies a little bit, hiring people that share your values. I wonder if you could tell us about any recruitment strategies around hiring or interviewing to acquire team members that share our values.
Happy to. And so I learned a valuable lesson from a store director at Nordstrom's in Vancouver. And Glenn will tell you, we spent an entire day with him and his people. And you've all heard the Nordstrom story where the customer returned tires and they took them back. I mean, you always wonder if that's true. But their employee handbook is what struck me. And the employee handbook says one thing, and that thing says use good judgment at all times. How awesome. I mean, literally, it's a book, and it says one thing inside the book. But we talked about recruitment a lot, and I said, where do you get your people from? You know, they're commissioned salespeople, and I'm thinking he's going to tell me Holt Renfrew and all these other places. He said, oh, good God, never from retail. And I said, what? Why not? And he said, I don't want another company's policies on my sales floor. And I thought, wow, that's cool. And I said, so where do you find your best talent from? And I've stolen his intellectual property shamelessly, because we do now too. And he said, Starbucks. And I said, why Starbucks? He said, who else can remember like a 4-shot grande, non-fat, extra hot latte, no foam, double cups, and your name, right? So he said, it's the most complicated sale, and they're still happy they've done it. And that's where they have the greatest success. And so I pointed everybody in the US at Starbucks, and honestly, they're just phenomenal people, right? I mean, who doesn't love their barista, right? So.
Very good. All excellent, insightful questions. So with that, let's give Kamy a big round of applause. That was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, great.